Nvidia versus AMD. Both are great companies, but which stock is a buy now? I'm gonna break it down for you in this video today. Now, semiconductors are cyclical by nature, so there's some problems there, but I'm gonna specifically go through each of these companies, name some pros and cons, look at the valuation, look at a chart, and at the end, I'm gonna tell you which one I think is a buy now. As Vince McMahon would say, I'm not gonna do that. So we've got two heavyweights in the ring today, Nvidia versus AMD. Which is gonna win round one? Let's get ready to rumble. Let's go. All right, first, let's look at Nvidia. What's going on with Nvidia? Now, we know the stock was down over 50% in 2022, even higher if you zoom the lens further back. It's been hammered like a lot of these tech and growth stocks. Now, both AMD and Nvidia are cyclical. They had supply chain issues, and they had a lot of issues, not only with supply chain, but also with pull through during the pandemic. So more and more people were at home, working from home, buying gaming rigs, also mining cryptocurrencies. And that impacted these businesses, had pull through. Their numbers were crazy high. And now we've got tough comps. We've seen this on a lot of these stocks. Now we're in crypto winter. We've experienced that. Now Bitcoin has bounced, I think, 25% since the beginning of the year. But crypto winter impacted Nvidia big time. Nvidia tries, to kind of scale back and say gaming segment and hide the crypto part. But the reality is that GPUs have been a big part of Nvidia's business over the last couple of years. GPU sales were boosted and then they plummeted. So now you've got those tough comps. That crypto decline, plus the fact how Bitcoin's mined, that is impacting Nvidia stock, and it's going to take some time to churn out. So what happens then is a lot of miners stop mining. They sell those GPUs on the used market. It floods the inventory. It brings prices down, and you've got some issues there with supply chain and just overall inventory, supply and demand. Nvidia's gaming division revenue fell 51% to $1.57 billion. Now, Nvidia experienced something very similar to this in 2018. And crypto impacted it then. There was a big crypto decline and the stock fell off really hard, really sharply after earnings. I started buying it after hours. This is November of 2018. And I was buying it around $35 a share. So what else is going on? Data center is its primary division now, okay? But gaming is still a big part of their business and GPUs overall. Last quarter, revenue was up 31% for data center specifically to $3.83 billion. It's doing much better than gaming, but revenue is only up 1% over Q2 when you look at data centers. So the growth has kind of started to hit a wall a little bit here. Professional visualization also saw revenue fall 65% to $200 million. Now, the bright spots for Nvidia on their last earnings really were around automotive and embedded revenue. That rose 86% to $250 million, but these segments are much smaller than gaming and data center. I think there's a lot of runway, room for growth, especially in automotive, but they are small segments of the business right now, and so it's going to take a while before that's really going to move the needle. So what else is going on with Nvidia? Two segments up, two segments down. Revenue dropped 17% last quarter. That was Q3. They're going to report again here in February. 31% increase in operating expenses. That hurts. Ouch. That has significantly impacted the stock. Earnings per share was down 72% to 27 cents. So they're still making money. They're not losing money, but EPS down 72%. Now, analysts expect the revenues to grow by 8.9% in FY 2024. So that ends a year from now in January of 2024. They also expect earnings per share to rise in that period. The EPS estimate is $4.31. That's significantly higher. So Nvidia trades right now, if you look at those numbers, it trades at a 35 times forward earnings. Let's look at current PE, market cap, and a chart to see where the stock could go next. All right, Nvidia, it's trading right now at $168.99, 71.88 P ratio. That's getting pretty expensive. You saw the forward P ratio earlier on the slide. Market cap, $415.72 billion. This thing was much higher than that at one point. It's come down a lot, of course. If you look at the one-year chart, it's down 34.76%. Now, if you look at the five-year chart, it's up 193%. So it's doing okay. Not as well as AMD over the five-year period, but doing okay. Over the past 6 months, it's up 5%. Over the past month, it's up 1.98%. Over the past 5 days, it's up 10.45% on this run. You have to be careful chasing. Now, next, I'm going to show you a chart here on TradingView. Anytime you see orange, it's a previous chart day. Yellow means today's chart day. Now, it's still yellow from last Wednesday's chart day because we haven't updated it since, but I want to show you this really fast here. So you can see this thing ran from $108. This was back in October. It ran from 108 to 187, and it did pull back to 138. And now it's ripped all the way up to $169. So it's probably going to have resistance around this blue line or this R1 Fibonacci here, this resistance line. So somewhere around 175 bucks likely, and it could consolidate and pull back. You're also going to have earnings coming up here in February, and I think earnings could make the stock roll over. This thing has gotten way ahead of itself. It's up, 60% or whatever the number is from the lows just a couple months ago. Just have to be really careful chasing this one. I like the stock. I like the company. I'm just not sure if I'd buy it right here at this price. But let's look at AMD because maybe it's a similar situation. So let's go through the slides on AMD, and I'll do the exact same thing for AMD, and I'll show you a chart later. Now, before I go on, guys, I'm going to cover AMD next, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts and tell you which stock I think is a buy now. Before we do that, I need you to please subscribe to the channel. Click the bell to get notifications. I'm trying to get this channel to 40,000 subscribers and I need your help. Also drop a like and comment. It helps the algo. I appreciate it. Let's move on. So AMD, big red, what's going on? Down over 60% from its October 2021 highs. AMD is focused more on CPUs versus GPUs. There is some overlap between the two, but really if you look at the core of it, Nvidia is primarily GPUs and AMD is primarily CPUs, okay? Nvidia impacted by crypto GPUs, AMD impacted by less businesses and gamers buying CPUs or computers, PCs, laptops. It all requires their CPUs. So the pandemic had pull through, inventory issues, supply chain, all that impacted both of these companies. So positives, Dr. Lisa Su just announced some really exciting products and technology at CES in Las Vegas about a week ago, and that could boost some new sales here over 2023. Now, if you have not watched the AMD video I did last week, go check it out. I think it does a good job breaking down the highlights from CES, has Lisa Su actually talking about some of the products, and it gives you a much deeper dive of AMD versus this video. This is very high level, just comparing AMD and Nvidia. So with AMD, you also have to look at data center. It's a growing part of their business. Both AMD and Nvidia, it's going to be huge when you think of cloud data center, you think of AI, and that Xilinx acquisition was huge for AMD going forward. Now, the third quarter revenue grew by 29% year over year, over $1.2 billion to $5.6 billion. What are the concerns with that? This is looking specifically at data center. So here are the concerns. If we dig at the revenue sources, you'll see embedded revenue increased by $1.3 billion. Now, the majority of that increase came from the acquisition of Xilinx. What does that mean? Well, overall, the revenue either remained flat or even slightly lower if you remove that acquisition. So be careful not understanding how those acquisitions work and how it impacts the earnings and EPS for a business. Okay, let's look even deeper at this. AMD forecasts $5.5 billion for Q4. That's an increase of about 14% year over year, $700 million in additional income. What does that mean? If the former Xilinx embedded segment contributes an additional $1.3 billion, it would demonstrate an overall revenue decline. This could bring more pressure on the stock later, especially as people figure that out. Let's look at the current PE, the market cap, and a chart for AMD to see where it could go next. Okay, so AMD is trading at $71 a share, and you can see the PE ratio right now is 42. So that's quite a bit lower than what Nvidia is trading at. Market cap on this one's $114.48 billion. You can see the 52-week high was 137, and the low was 54.57. So it has bounced nicely off that 55-hour range, but not nearly as much as Nvidia. If you look at a one-year chart, it's down 46%. 5-year chart though, it's up 463%. This has been a rock star. So again, orange previous chart days, yellow today's chart day. Now this is from last week, Wednesday. So this is what we said last Wednesday. We said golden opportunities past at 52 to 55, possible later, hard to say. Market seems to have priced semis higher for now. The market's going higher. Semiconductors often lead both directions. They'll start ripping before a lot of other growth names. They'll start, breaking apart, deteriorating and going down before a lot of other growth names as well. It kind of leads the market, not just growth, but the overall economy. It's cyclical. And so these will lead both directions. And right now, over the last couple of weeks, semiconductors have been a leader. So I said it's holding 63 and it would probably go higher. This first resistance line is around 75. That seems like a natural place where you could see some resistance. It bounced off 54, got to $79, pulled back all the way down here in the 60, 65 range. And now it's back up to $70, 71 bucks. Now in Discord, and you can join us on there if you want, guys, it's patreon.com/firedupwealth. But in Discord, we were saying if it gets 50 to 55, pound the table. That's an opportunity. It got to 54, 57 and ripped all the way to $79. Of course, we generally aren't trading. We're holding for long term. Do I like the stock here at $71? Yes. Of course, you could have bought it a little bit lower if you would have bought it just back in October. But in a minute here, I'm going to compare both of these and I'm going to look at the pros and cons and I'm going to tell you which one I think is a buy now. Is AMD a buy now? or Nvidia? Stay tuned to find out. All right, next guys, I'm gonna give you my final take, my final thoughts, and I'm gonna tell you which stock I think is a buy now, Nvidia or AMD. Now, before I do that, I need to announce this video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. If you'd like to see the 10 best stocks to buy now, visit fool.com/firedupwealth. You can also check out our private community in Discord. That's patreon.com/firedupwealth. So Nvidia versus AMD. Which stock is better and which stock is a buy now? Now, semiconductors are cyclical, as I mentioned earlier, but these are secular growth trends and mega trends. So when you think about all of the exciting technology and disruptive technology, think of artificial intelligence, cloud computing, cybersecurity, autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things, genomics, space exploration, metaverse, crypto, all of that is powered by these fabulous semiconductors, and semiconductors are the new oil. So it's a great way, a pick and shovel type way to play all these secular growth trends. And I'm not saying you should just go buy semiconductors, but semiconductors are a decent part of my portfolio composition. I'm focused a lot on software and semiconductors because that's what I know and understand. But if you really think about semiconductors, they are the fuel for all of these innovations moving forward. So long term, I think both Nvidia and AMD are going to do well for those reasons. Now, data center is going to be huge for both of these companies. You think of like ChatGPT, it requires a tremendous amount of data to be processed in these huge data centers and supercomputers. You think of quantum computing, all of that stuff needs these data center chips and these GPUs and these products that AMD and Nvidia are making. So data centers are going to continue to do well over time. Did you see that? My kid trying to crawl across to avoid being on camera. So Nvidia, I could argue, I mean, obviously it's more expensive. We saw the PE ratio, and it arguably has lower growth right now. So I think there's a lot more excitement around Nvidia. It's the bigger name. It has more hype around it. But you can argue that AMD could be the better play, but let's look a little further before we make a final assessment. I have more concerns over GPUs with crypto mining. I think most of that's probably flushed out, but it might take time because earnings lag. So this next earnings report, you know, who knows? We could have another miss and the stock could easily sell off. The stock has ran, I showed you a chart earlier, the stock has ran really hard from recent lows, $108 on Nvidia. So looking at this thing closer to 170, it's ran pretty hard. It is a pretty rich valuation. There's a lot of that growth kind of baked in. And of course, the market's forward looking, but you have to look at it as an investor and say, do I want to pay this price right now when it just ran 50, 60% from the bottom? Now, AMD just announced some really exciting new products at CES, but it's not like Nvidia is not going to do the same. So both these companies are going to continuously come out with new products, compete against each other in different areas. Both are going to continue to innovate and push the envelope. And really, both companies are best in class at what they do. So there's some overlap there, but I really think you can own both AMD and Nvidia in a portfolio, and I personally do myself. Now, as Nvidia and AMD continue to just push the envelope, make better and better products faster and faster, more and more data is going to be able to be processed faster. And AI, I can't stress the importance of the AI. You're going to see it more and more over the next 5 and 10 years. And these guys are going to be a big part of that story. I think Nvidia autonomous driving is also a very exciting prospect for future growth. It's a small segment of their business now, but they're growing it very rapidly. And I could see that segment of the business being much, much larger for Nvidia over time. Both of these companies, they fuel the future of technology. Semiconductors, the new oil. And both of these are excellent growth stories, in my opinion, for long-term investors. Now, I like both of these companies. I own both of the stocks. I prefer Nvidia, the story of Nvidia, better than AMD. But with that said, AMD, if I were to make a choice, which stock is a buy now? The choice would have to be AMD, simply on valuation of the things we covered about in the video. But I do think that both stocks will do well. I think they're both leaders in fabulous semiconductors. And I think both of these companies have very exciting futures. I like Nvidia. It's not that I don't. It's just I don't know if I'd buy it right now at these prices after the epic run it had. AMD looks more attractive from a valuation standpoint right now. If this video is helpful, guys, make sure you drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications. I appreciate your time and attention. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.